Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Are you in a Starbucks?
I am in a hotel that has a Starbucks.
Oh, nice. Wow, that's fancy.
Yeah.
Are you guys you're not on tour yet, not until
No,
this month, right?
we're we're on tour.
Oh,
So
are
this
you
tour
already? I was
this tour
thinking it
is
was later this month for some reason.
no, this tour is two parts. So the first part's mid February to mid March, and the second part's mid April to mid May.
Okay, so you got a break coming up for a little bit.
Yeah. We it was just a lot of shows that we wanted to play, so we split it in half. Otherwise, it's just been way too long.
Well, you guys, I mean, are constantly going. Anyways, the last 20 years, you're one of the hardest working bands out there. How are you able to maintain your sanity with as much as you guys are working?
I mean, I think that so as far as touring goes, we aren't actually on the road as much as it may seem. We tend to kind of launch things like as they come. And so we'll launch like three tours at a time pretty much. And it just looks like a lot. Whereas this year we only have 2 or 3 months of touring planned. And then we'll be home for the rest of the time. But while we're home, we're not sitting around. We're constantly trying to do stuff, put out releases, do solo tracks and things like that. We just try and keep a constant, steady flow of stuff coming out or being announced, just to keep everyone's attention on the band.
Well, geez, for 20 years. I mean, you're kind of rounded numbers this album, 10th
Yeah, right,
album, 20th year.
right.
That seems like that would be hard to keep that momentum. You guys, if in anything, just build more and more momentum. How have you been able to keep that going for so long without burning out?
Honestly, it's just a lot of luck. We've been talking about that a lot lately, and just working with the right people, building relationships is probably the most important part. We've been with a lot of the same people for a decade plus, and we try and always keep that going. Like we moved to a new record label, but we've kept a lot of the same press people. So it just and marketing people. So we try and keep a good solid team around us that's been with the band for a while, that likes working with the bands, that wants to see the band have success. So I think that's really important. I think a lot of bands tend to maybe try and go to the grass is always greener kind of thing, and then you end up losing a relationship or something like that. We kind of have a saying in our touring camp that actually first started with going from one bar to another bar. And it was just if you're having a good time at one place, you don't need to leave and try and find more fun at another place.
Right.
So we always have a saying, you don't leave fun for fun. And so if something's going well, you don't need to leave and try and progress if you think it's a good time or if you think it's a good choice.
That's really smart. I mean, clearly,
Yeah.
when you have a solid group that's all been doing the same things all the years, you're not going to have as many growing pains that way, that are sometimes going in the wrong direction. You're able to have like a recipe that works.
Right. I think if we were changing our sound or something like that, if we were making a drastic change, we might look to other people who have more experience in a radio field or things like that. But that's just not where we're going as a band. So we know that we don't really need to look for that, just because it's not something that we're currently interested in doing. So I think that we can just stay with the same people we have, and then it's like if we need help or something like that, we're not afraid to look for it, but we're happy to keep working with the same people that have already brought the band a lot of success.
Yeah, what you're doing is clearly working. Speaking of changing sound, yeah, there's a very tried and true sound that comes with Burns Red, but this album seems a little bit more maybe progressive.
Yeah, that's a good description. I mean, it's a lot more. It's dense. It's kind of dark. It sounds like it's what we've kind of always tried to do with our albums. We want them to sound different enough that they stand out on their own. But you still know it's us when you're listening to it. But this album obviously sounds a little bit different than Guardians. Guardians was our most probably, um, easy to listen to first time and catch some riffs and songs the first time through. Whereas this record, you're gonna need to listen to it 10 times. I mean, even the last single we put out with Reckoning, like it's not a it was funny. I was watching like some first reaction videos on YouTube, and they're just like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't like a first reaction song. This is a song that you need to listen to a bunch of times and to figure it all out and know what's kind of going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like premonition and the cleanse, I feel like premonition is like the preface to the cleansing. I feel like they kind of go together as
Right.
far as the lyrical content. Would that be an accurate understanding?
Right. Yeah. So this album, it started out as the idea of doing an EP that was all just going to flow together, like song after song. So a lot of it, and then we just ended up having so much material that we're like, we need to make a whole record. So, yeah, everything is built to kind of flow together. And like a lot of times words, like while like, so one song will end on like a sentence and it doesn't necessarily that song's meaning isn't the same meaning as the next sentence, but you could like put them together.
Hmm.
Like Fool's Gold and the Bear Trap run right into Backfire, and they kind of like flow together, and the songs don't mean the same thing, but the last line could also connect with the first line of the next song. So we just kind of did stuff like that.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. That takes a lot of attention to detail to be able to accomplish something like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of thought and it's interesting. Like at first we were apprehensive, or I personally was like as the manager, as one of the managers of the band, JV and I manage the band, it's like kind of our job to maybe look outside of the band and say, is this a good choice? While we love it artistically, is it a good choice? And, you know, in the days of Spotify and stuff like that, like we're going to have songs that if you only listen to that song, you're going to be like, that ended really strange. Like, what the heck happened? And it's just like, you know, we sat down and talked about if this was a good choice or not. And in the end, you know, this is what we went with. And so it's not like it's not one you're going to put on shuffle, because if you do, you're going to be like, bye. I don't know what's
Well, hopefully that encourages people to experience albums the way we used to experience them before
right.
it was skipping around.
Right.
I mean, you know, I guess back in cassette tape and record days, there wasn't really an easy way to skip around, you know. So, and that's the way it should be
Right.
experienced. You guys put a lot of work into it to be a certain way.
Yeah. Yeah. We have, you know, our fan base is mostly our age, you know, they're in their 30s, late 20s, 30s. So they're used to listening to records. Um, Whereas, like, I think the younger generation is like, I'm going to listen to this 2.5 minute single on Spotify, and then I'm going to jump to another 2.5 minute single on Spotify, and just like, you know, like all the biggest songs right now are all super short, and that's because everyone's designing them to just get played over and over again. It's because you don't get paid for the amount of minutes listened to; you get paid for the amount of time, amount of times that song was played. So if your song's only 2 minutes long, people are just gonna you can just listen to it a gazillion times. Whereas like, you know, our song Reckoning is 8 minutes long. So it's just like, so, you know, having songs like that, you know, but there are some bands who are going, you know, more this way. That band Sleep Token, their songs are as long as can be. People love it.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think that people appreciate it if it's good, you
Mm.
know, as long as it's good, they'll listen. If it's not, they won't, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I think the metal and rock fans go into more of the appreciation of the music versus the um I don't even know what it would be for a 2.5 minute. I haven't
Right.
It's never been my experience with music, so that's kind of a I know
Yeah.
that that's how the world works, but it's a trip for my brain.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's very much so. Like even now, you're having bands in our world put out like shorter songs. Like, you know, it's just the way it is, and sometimes it's a great song that's short and to the point. You know, we
Right.
have our song Vengeance, and that's the shortest song we ever wrote, and we were like, this song's done. We don't need to do anything else. But it was super short, and
Right.
you know, and it streamed really well because of that. But you
Jeez.
know, it just kind of how it is right now.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, hopefully I don't even know what the next direction would be. Obviously, none of us can anticipate that, but hopefully the next direction is more in favor of the musicians behind the music versus the quickness to get through it. I don't know. It's so hard for me to digest and understand. But I wanted to ask about Fool's Gold and A Bear Trap because first of all, I want to pick apart that song title because clearly
Right.
there's a big metaphor in there. And then I
Right.
also wanted to talk about the song itself because it's such a cool song. It takes such a dramatic shift about what over a minute and a half in, almost 2 minutes
Right.
in.
Right. So that song was built like we were, when we were talking about doing that EP, that song was built as like a transition track at first. That was only going to be that beginning part.
Mm.
And then eventually we're just like, this is really cool. You should try, and Dustin, our bass player, wrote that song. Really, you should try and like add more to this and just like kind of turn it into like a straight up just black metal track. And um so we did, and it's awesome. And it went from being a transitional track to something that's really cool. And then um we wanted to go back and forth between him and Jake, which it does, and it's really neat. And then, lyrically, like the whole Fool's Gold in the Bear Trap is how like I think over the pandemic and things like that, you had a lot of people looking for like get rich quick schemes because people didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And, there was a lot of like things with like cryptocurrency and stock market. And it was a whole lot of like, I'm just going to reach and reach and reach for this versus working super hard for
Right.
something. I'm just going to like hope I hit the lottery. And, there was a lot of people like kind of pulling strings to
Mm-hmm.
like, and a lot of people got really wealthy off other people's misery,
Right.
because they saw what was going to happen and the people at the bottom didn't, and they just kind of pulled the rug out from underneath them. So like,
Right.
that's just kind of where the title comes from. It's if you're there's like a line about you're trying to get to this journey, you're trying to get rich, and you're trying to strike rich, but you're scrapping every part except for like the X, which is like you're skipping the whole entire journey, and then you're
Mm-hmm.
just only trying to find the treasure at the end of it. So that's kind of where that song came from.
That's a great metaphor, and that's a great thing just in general. I mean, even outside of that specific situation, it's such a great metaphor, especially for kids. We live in such a now world. I think it's hard for a lot of
Right.
kids to recognize that they need to be putting in the work and effort in order for it to pay off. And
Right.
so it's an important message.
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's something that you guys are very well known for, your positive and inspirational lyrics. It's funny because people outside, friends or family members that aren't metal fans have, we know the same reaction. It's all dark, it's all about death, it's all evil, like, they don't get it. So what would you say? I'm sure you've experienced it yourself with people not even going in and picking apart your guys' music and hearing what you're saying. What do you say to those people?
I mean, for the most part, bands in our genre are writing inspirational songs, or they're writing like songs that have a lot of deep meaning. There are like obviously like the more like fantasy metal bands, but like even those people, when you meet them in person, you're just like they're just like, yeah, I write it because it's fun. Like,
Right.
like
Or storytelling.
exactly. And like Amon Mars thinks about dragons all the time. So like, they actually believe dragons exist. So like so like
Well,
yeah, who knows? They might.
do they
But
not?
yeah, yeah. So I think that we've always just wanted to like have fans walk away with a good impression. We grew up, not like grew up, I guess, but we like halfway through a career we started doing like a lot of Warped Tour stuff, and we're playing in front of mostly teenagers there, and you had a lot of bands there who, in my opinion, were saying like awful things to these crowd of impressionable teenagers, and I was just like, I don't want that to be us. Like
Mhm.
these kids need to like be good people. You can't just say like like fuck the world, like it doesn't matter. It's like, no, it does.
Right.
Like you need to be a responsible human, and like a contributing member of society. Like
Mhm.
to just say like kind of like screw everything, just do exactly what you want. Sounds nice in theory, but in the end, like you need to have or to have some kind of desire to leave a positive impact. And if no one cares, and no one cares about anyone else except for themselves, then we're not gonna, that's kind of why we're in a lot of the problems that the world's in today, because people only think about themselves. They don't think about anyone else.
Right. Right. So because music is kind of therapy away from therapy and is so important as something that people, I mean, pretty much almost everybody, there's some weirdos out there that don't use it for therapy, but for,
Right.
a lot of people, that's what they utilize it for. So you're like almost as a guidance for these people that maybe don't have it within their own environment, you know?
Right. Yeah. Music should have some kind of influence. And if you like fall in love with music, if you aren't just a casual listener, it's probably because you did latch on to something that was said or a certain part in the song moved you. And I think a lot of people don't realize that like musicians loved the music from the start because they latched on to the same things everyone else did. They had an issue or a problem in a song, got them through a time. And so because of that, they wanted to become a musician. So a lot of guys in bands like have their own mental baggage and
Mhm.
like go to therapy and things like
Yeah.
that. And it, music for us was a way to escape and I think a lot of people are like that. That's why they fall in love with it. And
Mhm.
so, I think that it's important for us to kind of put a focus on like you said, like being a good influence and a positive force because we know that people are using it the same way that we did when we were kids.
Right, right. Yeah, so that message is really important and thankfully something that everybody that listens to you guys gets, you know. It's not lost in the incredible musicianship that you guys have and the amazing, instrumental aspect of it. The lyrics aren't lost in that.
Yeah.
And sometimes when it comes to um metal, you just kind of start rocking out and don't really get lost in the
Right.
lyrical components, but you guys are really good about bringing that forth.
Yeah, we try to. I know that some of the guys, I write pretty direct when I write lyrics. I think some of the guys wish I wasn't as direct as I was, as I am. But like for me, like, you know, I want people to have some understanding of what I'm saying and what I'm writing about. I try to make them all very relatable. Um, and I think that that helps people latch on to a song, whether or not they spin it for what they want. That's up to them.
Right.
Um, I try to make it relatable to an extent. I don't need people to think the exact same thoughts that I was, but
Of course.
I want them to like have an understanding of what's going on and what the song's about.
So I'm sure you've had probably numerous times people come to you, whether it's through social media or through shows, and tell you how much they appreciate you getting them through hard times. I have a friend right now that's going through a really tough life transition that is just like there who helped me get through it and is so
Yeah,
thankful for you guys for that. How does that feel to have people come up and express those things to you knowing that you're making a big
it's
difference?
good. It's good. I don't think a lot of people look at it as a job where you can like help people, but that's one of the biggest things. Like we talked about the other day before we went on stage. Jake was like, "Isn't it really neat that literally our job is to go out there and have people smile and have a good time?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's nice, right?" Like, you provide like you provide the escape for those people. You provide them with inspiration and thoughts and positive thoughts that they need. And like there's all kinds of good research out there about how helpful music is. And it makes us feel good, it makes us feel positive. But like I said, we chose to do music and because we love music growing up, we loved it for the same reasons that our fans do. And there were songs that people wrote that got me through stuff. And so like when someone walks up to me and they're like, "Hey, I really just appreciate those words you wrote. They helped me through a tough time." That's what we're going for.
Yeah.
That's what as far as writing lyrics, that's what definitely what we are aiming for. And that's why like it's hard for us to like write some crazy like negative stuff. Like while there are darker lyrics and stuff, we always try and have them resolve in a somewhat positive way. So that there is a conflict and then a good ending.
Well, and I think that that's important to address those dark times too, because we all experience them, whether
Right.
it's internal or external. So it's being realistic, and I think that's something else that people can identify with, is not like it's all sunshine and roses all the time. It's just not,
Right. It's
especially the
definitely
last
not.
few years.
Right. Right. That's exactly right. And you know, one of the reasons we chose not to do the EP, like at first we were just gonna write like an EP that was straight up just like about the pandemic, and I was just like, like I I was pretty kind of against that because I didn't want people to just listen to the record and be reminded of one of the worst times in their life every time they heard the
It's
record.
like re-traumatizing them.
Yeah, I was just like, I'm like, maybe we can do like a song or two about it, but like other than that, I just didn't want that to be like a thing that people would go back and be like, oh man, this record's a bum out. So we added a lot of other topics in there, and ended up making it more of a traditional record for us.
So I have to ask because lyrics are so important with the CD and the albums. Are you going to be releasing them with the lyrics?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I figured that would. I mean, important lyrics. You want to make sure that you're
Right.
conveying them in every way possible.
Right. Right.
Right. So the last time we saw you guys was when you guys were playing with Kill Switch. And you guys did the Legend of Zelda cover, which was
Yeah.
super fun. What made you guys decide to cover that? I mean, I feel like that's
Yeah.
kind of an obvious question,
Yeah.
but
So Justin is a huge Zelda fan. He actually has like a big tattoo of Link on his leg, and so he wanted to cover it, and he did, and he just ripped it, and it's really fun for us to play. It's a good song. It provides Jake with a break in the set. It's hard to scream for a long time. Like this tour, we have a good amount of breaks for him, where we do like some of our more instrumental songs because we're playing for like almost an hour and a half every night.
wow.
So when a screaming vocalist, it's a lot. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it's just a great track to play. It's really fun, and Dustin knocked it out of the park with it. So we're happy to have it, happy to play it.
It was so much fun. Yeah, I didn't anticipate it, so it was a really fun surprise to and then with the light show and everything, it was just
Yeah,
a really enjoyable thing because I mean, I'm 40, so I grew up with like the OG Zelda.
right, right.
But yeah, your guys' live performances are absolutely incredible. You guys are
Thanks.
so tight, and I guess that's maybe why. And plus, I feel like you guys are on the road a lot, and maybe that's why how you've explained earlier. But
Yeah,
you guys are so incredibly tight. It seems like you're just playing nonstop.
it's just yeah. I mean, I think it just helps with being the same unit for so long.
Yeah.
When we first started, we did tour 10 months out of the year, so that helps just build that cohesiveness. And everyone practices at home. It's we're not a band that you can go home and then not do your instrument until your next
Mhm.
tour. So like while we not might not be touring a ton, like we're all at home probably playing our instruments on a daily basis. So like I said, it's just we're not a band that you can just put down your instruments and walk away.
Yeah.
You won't come back good enough to play the songs live.
Yeah.
So we just kind of we always just make sure we're with it as far as instruments go, and then we get together before each tour. We probably do like 5 days of practice, a couple days of pre-production, and then it just like I said, we've been playing a lot of these songs for years now, and we toured really heavily early on, and everyone just kind of snapped together that way.
Jeez, it's still really impressive. What are some things you do for self-care either on tour or off tour?
So on tour, like the sets every night are great, but a lot of us try like as far as like exercise and things like that. But it's we try to like I meditate. Like I said, some of the guys are in therapy. I do therapy like a couple every other week, pretty much, and then we do. Everyone just has their space and has their time, and um, vitamins, eat well. We try to, we just try to take
Yeah.
care of ourselves, and we're a pretty good support system for each other at this point. You can tell if someone's having a bad day, and if you and a lot of times people are like, I don't want to talk about it, and that's fine. Sometimes you
Mhm.
want to talk about it, and that's fine too. So, we just try and look out for each other, make sure everyone's doing all right.
Yeah, I've said it a million times before, but I mean, it's like a marriage. You guys are spending so much time together. You have to be able to know how to read each other and know how to, coexist.
Right.
But I'm actually a therapist outside of this. And so
Okay.
I'm assuming if some of you guys are doing therapy all while you're on the road, you're doing the telehealth therapy, which is an
Yeah.
awesome addition that they now are able to do.
Right. It's good. I only started doing telehealth on this tour. Um, and yeah, it's all right. It's not
It's
like
different.
it is different. Well, and I do more of a cognitive therapy. I'm a pretty compulsive person. So a lot of my therapy is cognitive, and that's more of an in-person kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I've had one on this tour, and it was fine. It was more of just like a talk session on this tour because there's, like I said, cognitive therapy is more of an in-person kind of thing. But but yeah, we use it. It's a tool, and it's so easy now to do therapy. You have things like BetterHelp. I know that Jake's company works with BetterHelp,
Oh, nice.
and so yeah, there's just a lot of good outlets for it, and it's a good thing to have. And there's no reason to keep everything you have bottled up inside, and it's a good way to figure out like you don't ever want to. We've said this before on tour. There's a difference between talking shit and venting, you
Oh, for
know,
sure.
and like so like it's if you've had a bad day with someone and you just need to vent, it's a good spot to do that because not every battle needs to be brought to the table.
Hmm.
Sometimes you just need to talk it out and get to your conclusion that way. And like that helps a lot, like with stuff on tour. Like I said, not every if someone made me angry, I don't need to go sit them down and tell them why they made me angry. Like
Right.
I don't, because do I need to get in a fight that day? No, I don't. What I need to do is just maybe talk to someone about it,
Hmm.
and then it'll help me resolve it and get over it the next day. Like, you know,
Right.
like so that's it's a good outlet for that.
For sure, yeah. It helps with decompressing, but it also helps with sometimes, for some reason, saying something out loud to someone that you don't have to like worry about biases or judgment or
Right.
whatever. You like are able to problem solve your way through it, you know? I mean, because therapists aren't supposed to give you advice, even though sometimes we do, we're not
Yeah.
supposed to. But it's interesting to see someone be able to come to their own answers and to their own conclusions just by saying it out loud.
Right. And that's what it's a great tool for. It's like I said, we live in on tour, you live in a space where sometimes you don't have the ability to vent because it'll word will get back to that person and then they're like, oh, you were talking shit about me. It's like, no,
Mhm.
you just made me annoyed and you need to talk to someone about it. And if I talk to you about it, you just get more annoyed. So like
Mhm.
and it's like a menial matter that we don't need to
Right.
discuss, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. What would be an artist or a band that someone would be surprised is in your musical uh catalog?
Oh man, I don't really listen to that much metal, so maybe all of it.
Yeah, no, that's that. You know what? Metal is such a great combination. Geez, it is
Yeah.
Friday. I need more coffee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, combination of so many different genres before it, and I think it's so important to listen to other styles of music, especially as a creator, because how do you not get
Right.
stuck
Well, you don't want to
without
get
that?
tired of it. You know, we've been playing this kind of music for a really long time. So like and I didn't grow up listening to metal. I started out with punk and all kinds of stuff. So like
Huh,
I only got into metal pretty late, right before the band started actually. And
huh.
so like I listen to a lot of different stuff. Right now I'm just looking at like the new Pianos Become the Teeth record is really good. If you want to, it's kind of a little bit of a bum out record, but I like it still. And then as far as like more big hardcore sounds, band Birds and Row is great. And then I listen to a lot of different stuff. There's uh, one of the guys that I grew up with playing shows with. He's a manager now, and he has this artist called Bartee Strange. That's really awesome, and he's just like a singer songwriter, but that's kind of a little bit has some funk in it. It's really good.
Ooh,
I like
ooh,
that a
that sounds
lot.
interesting.
And then, but yeah, like I said, I don't listen to a whole ton of metal. My all-time favorite band is probably Against Me.
Oh,
So like, yeah, yeah.
nice, nice. So, does that help with your like obviously with doing this for 20 years, there's going to be times of where you're going to get, quote unquote writer's block of where you're going to get stuck. How do you move past those times or how do you find that motivation or inspiration to work through those times of where you're stuck?
I mean, it just can be, and I think a lot of time it is just time, and that's why, like for us, we don't sit down and be like, "I'm going to write today," like because that's
Hmm.
a great way to just have writer's block. So a lot of times it's just for me with lyrics, it's just like an inspirational moment happened, and like I think of a line, and then boom, I need to go sit down and write it all down. That's kind of how I function. I don't generally sit down with the purpose of writing a song. Like it can happen at any moment. Like I think of something like literally after we hang up here, and I'll go type it all out and then revisit it down the road. You know, so there are times of writer's block, like I'll do that, and then I'll be like, all right, I don't know how to finish a song, and that's when I just like kind of maybe take it to someone else from the band, be like, hey, got any
Oh,
ideas? So that helps a lot.
yeah, that's cool. So when you write it down and you go back to revisit it, are there other or is it hard to like tap back into where your mindset was there?
It can be. I don't usually revisit it much later. Like
Yeah, okay.
I'll come back like a day or two later, and just make sure it's all organized and good. And then kind of go from there. Like I don't like wait like a week or months or something like that.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's just a quick temporary on the shelf.
Right. Because a lot of times, like I said, like it could just literally be like we hang up here, I have an idea, and you write stuff down, but I have other stuff I have to go do. So like I don't have time to finish it all. So I just kind of come back when I do.
So you don't just eat, sleep, and breathe music all the time. You actually have other
No.
responsibilities like family
Right.
and kids, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And animals, because you have, I just recently learned you have a dog named
Yeah.
Archer, which is,
I
I'm assuming, is named from Sterling Archer.
I have two dogs actually. So we had Archer actually came from our first dog that my wife and I had when we got married. His name was Gunner, and that's the name he was given to us. And he unfortunately died when he was like just he hadn't even turned 4 yet.
Oh,
He pretty much came loaded with a bunch of problems.
oh,
Uh,
yeah.
but he was a sweet dog and we loved him. And so we kind of went from Gunner to Archer. We thought that was a good transition. And then we have another dog whose name is Saber, and
Oh,
he's
so it's
he's a
all like
lot.
melee weapons.
Right. Well, it's funny because we got Saber for my son's 5th birthday, and we're like, "What's a good?" The Silver Lab, and we're like, "What's a good
Oh,
name for a Silver Lab?" And we like went through all this stuff, and eventually Nash was like Saber, and we're like, "All right, yeah, sounds good."
that fits with the
Yeah,
trio. Are you guys
yeah.
Star Wars fans?
No, well, I'll watch it. Nash, my son Nash, he's getting more into it, but it's not his like favorite thing. We like watching through the episodes and stuff, uh, but yeah, we like the Mandalorian a lot, and
Uh,
that comes out what today or
yeah,
yesterday?
no, it was 2 days ago. It came out on the
Okay,
first. You got
yeah,
to
so
get
we're
caught
waiting.
up. Maybe you can
Well,
video your son in and watch it
yeah,
together.
we'll watch it when I get home. We'll just plow through it when I get home.
Okay.
But yeah, so we've been watching that, and then we were like that. But we tried watching it through like the ones from like what would be the first one to
Uh-huh.
the end. And those first, like what are the first three are pretty brutal to get us
They
through.
really are. I agree. I agree.
It's
They're pretty weirdly bad acting and really slow in
right.
some parts.
Yeah, and then the one apparently they tried some new kind of video or camera style that was like supposed to be revolutionary for the time, and then everyone hated it. So they like never did it again. I forget which one. I think it's episode 3. And you're just like, this movie looks so strange. But yeah, yeah, they aren't very good. They get way
Yeah,
better
I don't think
down
I've
the
ever
road.
met a casual Star Wars fan. It's either like gung ho hardcore or not for me. Like,
Yeah. No,
like take
yeah,
it or leave it.
I'm casual. I would say that I am a casual Star Wars fan. I like the movies because I think they're fun, but I'm not gonna like dive in and be a big Star Wars fan.
Yeah. Oh, well, I will let you get on your way since you guys are
Cool.
super, super busy, but I really appreciate you taking the time. I hope your
Absolutely.
tour goes great. I hope you get a good break in between. And congrats on the release 3 weeks from now. That's absolutely incredible album.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks. Bye.
Yep. Bye.